all looks pretty good actually, so I'm pretty happy with that. I might genuinely have a camera in focus for like the first time since the first ever video that I made, so that's exciting. Hello and welcome to the British Book Guide. This is another really exciting video. I'm sorry it's a bit late. This is my 2015 best of. Yes! So if you've seen any of my videos, you likely know two things. The first is that I really love Neil Gaiman. And the second is that my favourite book of all time is The Amber Spyglass. And I did in fact read that this year. But I'm not going to put it on this list because it feels unfair to every other book to exclude first place to a book that I've loved for 10 years. So that's not on the list. The other thing that I want to point out is these aren't books that were released in 2015. I'm not sure if I've read any books that were released in 2015. So these are just for books that I've come across that I've read this year, regardless of when they were published or when they were released or whatever. So let's get into it. Oh no, there's another thing I need to say. I've put these into a rough descending order. It's not strict. You know, I'm not going to sit down like a whole day and say, no, objectively I loved this more than this one, so this is just a rough order. So now let's get into it. So coming in at number 10, but not strictly, is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I really enjoyed this book. It was a really nice, breezy read. It wasn't very demanding. I thought the action was great. The world that it built up was fantastic. Really pulled me along. Really interesting read. As you know, probably, I'm really into video games, so it was nice to read a book about something else that I really loved. And really nice to see those two things come together so well. It was a really interesting world in the Oasis, and a really fantastic read, I thought. And a lot of people don't like it, but just easy read, breeze through it, you don't have to think, you don't have to strain yourself to try and capture all the themes and everything that it's trying to say. There's like no depth to it, which is great for some books. And so when you just want to chill out and read, just with no, other meanings to it, what is said is what it means, this is a fantastic book for that. So that's why I got number 10. Coming in at number 9 is Daniel Keyes' Flowers for Algernon. I think I'm saying Algernon right, let me know if I'm not. But, I mean, Algernon. How else can you say it, actually? Probably I'm saying it right, aren't I? Really good book. Really different to what I thought going in. What pulled me along with this was that it's probably one of the best character pieces I've read. You don't get a feel for the character's progression in just the way that the story's told, but in the language that it uses. And I'm sure that there are other books that do that, but not that I've come across. So that was a really big, draw for me. That's what I really liked about it. It was a real sympathetic character, and his journey was quite a big one. It was a real big progression, and it kind of came full circle, and it was a really sad ending. I thought, and I'm quite immune to sadness because I'm a bloke, obviously, and British. Again, a book that I really like. It was a very deep book that you kind of did have to think about. You couldn't just let it fly by because you'd probably miss quite a lot of the layers to it, in a way. Really good themes, really interesting and great to read book. I really enjoyed it. I think I've just repeated myself now. This did pull me along quite well, not so much because I thought that the plot was so amazing, but because the character was so interesting, and I really wanted to know what would happen with him and how it would end, because, there's this whole looming threat, what happens to Algernon, and you want to know what happens to Charlie, so it pulls me along really well because you feel so much sympathy towards the character. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. I'm going to sneeze. I'm going to sneeze. So, a more recent one, I think it was in my in my book haul, I think last month or maybe the month before, is Joe Abercrombie's Half a King series. This is the last one, but I do mean the whole series. I read all three this year, so. And I've talked about this quite a lot, so I'm not, I'm just treading the same ground that I've been over before, so I'm just going to talk about this briefly. What I really liked about this was that the plot was fantastic and it moved at a fantastic breakneck speed. The characters were amazing and you were so invested into the characters, every single one that came up throughout the whole trilogy. And there's quite a few. And to every single one you feel a great attachment, and that is fantastic. And then there's the plot, which moves at a great speed. It's very smart, I think. Few twists and turns in it that you never see coming, and there's not a lot, so you don't expect there to be a twist, but because there's so few twists when they come, they're really, really big, I thought they were really fantastic. A really good main character of Father Yarvi, who does pull the whole plot along throughout the 3 books, even if he's just pulling the strings in the background, nothing to do with twists. Great series. Is that in focus? I think it is. Unless I slam it in my camera. Really great read. I really definitely recommend this. I do think this one came out in 2015 actually. Let me yeah, so I did read a book this year. Hey, I think the only book that did come out this year. Real big recommendation for me. Real good read. Half a War, Half a King series. Fantastic read. Yeah. Another book that I talked about quite recently. It was in one of my wrap-ups. Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. So again, this is a book that I talked about not that long ago, so I'm not going to retread the same ground. Fantastic book. Really well told story. Really interesting characters who get, the space to breathe, which is really good in a book with so many diverse and, deep characters. Not what I expected, but it was a different angle to the war that I'd never seen before, and in some ways, because it was ridiculous, I think that gave a really nice impression on it. Or a really interesting impression on it. Very harrowing ending. The last time I talked about this, that was the word that I always used, was harrowing, and that's just the only word I can think of which describes it absolutely perfectly. Really funny book. It does lose it a bit towards the end, but then it gets replaced by, this really deep seriousness, which is, again, fantastic. Does become a bit grim towards the end, but then it'll kind of... Yeah. This is a very difficult book to talk about without telling you spoilers. Why do I care about spoilers? It's like 60 years old. They all die at the end. Everyone except Yossarian dies. So yeah, when everybody starts to die, the book takes a very slick turn from kind of funny beginning to very depressing ending as they all kind of get chopped up by airplanes and fly into mountains and grim. Talk about spoilers, bloody hell. You haven't read it by my spoilers. So yeah, that came in whatever position I'm on now. So remember how at the beginning of the video I said I like Neil Gaiman? Well, Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett, yeah. This is a really fantastic book. I wasn't sure when I read it if I really liked it, and it's one of the books I kind of came away from, thought about it, it's like, actually that was really brilliant. When you can see the whole thing together, it's fantastic. And of course reading it was a joy, as it always is to read Neil Gaiman. I've never read Terry Pratchett before. I don't know if it quite counts to say that this is like a Terry Pratchett book, because obviously it's co-authored. A real big Neil Gaiman vibe, which I really love. Fantastic world, great characters, were really interesting, and they moved the plot along really well. They just were the anchor that held the plot in place, so that was great. A lot of great characters. Some of you've definitely heard of before, like the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, but changed and updated because Neil Gaiman's a genius and he can do what he wants. Oh, was that Terry Pratchett's bit? And Terry Pratchett's a genius and he can do what he wants. I know that much, even though I haven't read him. Good Omens, another fantastic book. Really glad to have read this one. You probably know by now that I'm just blitzing through everything Neil Gaiman's done, and this definitely comes under that banner. So well, I'm glad to have read I've read a lot of Neil Gaiman, but just a joy to read in itself. This book was a bit more difficult to kind of decide whether to put it on my list, and then when I decided it had to be on my list, where to put it, and it actually got quite a high spot. Am I on the fourth? Fifth book. So it eventually got fifth spot because when I looked back on it and I remembered kind of just absolutely destroyed me at the end. Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go. This book moves at such a slow speed, it's kind of very difficult to see what's happening underneath, and so when things do happen, you're kind of so grateful that you're kind of not very paying attention, or that's what I felt anyway, because it is a really slow book and a lot of things do happen, and then when the things that do happen come along, they are fantastic and they're fantastically written. But what really cemented this in my mind was the ending, and I'm not going to spoil the ending. It absolutely destroyed me, so that probably gives away a little bit what happened. Every single character in this, well, the three main characters in this were fantastic. They were so distinct, and they pulled in their different directions, and they all kind of moved against each other and with each other at different times and in different ways, and absolutely just really great character piece. That's really what it was, the plot wasn't so important. I think that's what I missed the first time I read it, the only time I've read it. But to just look at the characters and how they react and how they move through the plot and through their lives, which are obviously very, very important. And then, told through his fantastic framework, and then of kind of a present, talking about the past, and then the past catches up with the present, more or less, and then you see kind of what happens to them all as adults and how they've lived their lives and what happens to them at the end, and absolutely destroyed me. That might be a weird way to talk about some books. I think I've seen other people say that, but I think that's a really good way of saying how a book left me feeling. It destroyed me. The Amber Spyglass absolutely destroyed me. As I said before, The Amber Spyglass was the only book that has ever made me cry, and this was a really close second. Didn't quite get there, because I'm a bloke and I don't feel emotions. Can't help myself. Neil Gaiman again, Stardust. So again, a book that I talked about quite recently. And I said that what was so great about this book was having this premonition of having read it before that I wasn't going to like it, and then coming to it and finding out that I really, really loved it. In fact, it does so many things right and so many things that I personally enjoy that I like to see in stories. It's the fairy tale aspect to it. It's a bit grim, there's a bit of murder, and it goes a bit dark at times, which I think is great for a fairy tale. But then on top of all that, there's this fantastic unicorns and magic and princesses and everything that you just love about, you know, archetypal fairy tales, but then subverted in a sense because it's Neil Gaiman and he does that really well. And what I like about this more than Good Omens is that this is a very English novel. British countryside, fairy tale is based on the English countryside as well. Archetypal English or European fairy tale, so that was fantastic. Now that I can appreciate it on a different level to the film, fantastic, really loved it, so I'm just going to waggle it about like I don't care. Now, into the top 3. Unfortunately, I don't actually have a book with me. It's one that I lent to my sister, so I don't have it at hand. If I Stay by Gail Forman. And it's quite a different book to what's usually on, you know, the other stories that are on the list. It's a young adult book, probably mostly for girls, so, and then it managed to get 3rd spot. I said I wanted this video to be less than fucking 5 minutes. I've done nearly 20 minutes of filming. Where's my tea? So outraged, I'm going to drink my tea. So yeah, If I Stay. Not sure what to expect when I was going into it. It did so many things right, and, you know, really nice, really believable, really sympathetic character that I really enjoyed getting to know and spending the time with as she was kind of in this coma and going through everything. I read it so long ago, I can't remember very much what happened. It's actually a book I might reread because I really did enjoy it. And with coming to it from a different perception, I'd like to see if I liked it as much as I did when I first discovered it. But yeah, really great book. Really, really enjoyed it so much that I had to put it in 3rd spot, even though I can't remember what happened in it. I just remember really thinking this is absolutely fantastic, and for a very long time it was probably the best book that I read in the year. Should we move on to the top 2? Oh, there it is. Lost the book, but it's where I thought it was going to be. Oh, my battery. Stop it, battery. Stop it. So, top 2. Wasn't sure if to make this the first one, but ultimately got pushed out. 1984 by George Orwell. Really like this because dystopia is quite a big thing right now, and it's really interesting to see where that started and where it came from. And once you've read this, no other dystopian is going to have quite the same edge, because you're like, that's a rubbish world. It doesn't bloody measure up to Ingsoc and Big Brother. What are you moaning about people in that respective book? You know, go live in 1984 England in George Orwell's book and then moan. That's a good reason to moan. And that's why I really liked it, because I felt like the characters really existed to kind of showcase the world, and I think that was fine because the world and the government is so thorough and so well thought out, and it's quite a genius way that it does it. The fact that the characters took a backseat was totally okay. Really great novel. You know, a British classic as well, which I've got to appreciate, being a Britishman. Being an Englishman. So this was a book that kind of moved a bit slowly, and I wasn't sure where it was heading until the end, which a lot of books have done. And then, you know, it all came together really well. All the slots fitted together into a single bit, and that was fantastic, and I really liked that. So, yeah. 1984 by George Orwell, fantastic book. Stoner by John Williams. I jumped into camera then, that was a bit sad. When I bought this novel, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't think it was going to be very good. Thought it was just going to be another mundane book that I maybe was just going to think, yeah, it was okay. But that I wanted to read because it had got so much attention, so I wanted to know if the attention was worthy. And oh my god, it was. Yeah, number 1 in the top 10 of the 52 books I read this year was this book, because it was such a fantastic book. And if you know the premise, it doesn't sound fantastic at all. Normal man, born in 1891, lives a normal life, grows up a farmer, becomes a professor, gets married, has kids, dies, and that is it. It doesn't move any faster than that, nothing more interesting happens, but what pulls it along is the fantastic prose. The way that it's written is so human and it's so true that you're just drawn into it, because not a lot of books are able to do that so well. Just describe a character and just have this one character doing everyday normal things, but carry a whole book along, and in a way that's just totally believable,